Barış Arduç Elçin Sangu had always shared a kind of connection that was difficult to explain. It was not simply the comfort of two people who had worked together. There was something in the way they looked at each other, the way they understood small gestures, and the way their conversations seemed to continue even when neither of them was speaking. Their story began with professional respect. Both were talented actors with strong personalities and their own unique approaches to their work. When they first spent more time together, neither of them knew how meaningful that partnership would eventually become in the eyes of their audience. Barış was known for his calm confidence. He rarely needed to be the loudest person in a room. He could communicate through a simple expression or a quiet smile. Elçin, on the other hand, carried a bright energy that could change the atmosphere around her. She could be playful one moment and deeply thoughtful the next. Their personalities were different, but that difference seemed to create a natural balance. During long days of filming, they gradually learned each other's rhythms. Barış noticed when Elçin needed a moment of quiet before an important scene. Elçin understood when Barış was concentrating and preferred not to be distracted. These were small things, but small things often reveal how closely two people have begun to understand one another. One afternoon, after a particularly emotional scene, the two remained on set while most of the crew moved to another area. Elçin looked at Barış and smiled. That scene felt different today. Barış nodded. I felt it too. There was a short silence. Neither tried to explain exactly what had changed. Sometimes, a feeling does not need an explanation. Their connection became more noticeable as their work continued. When they performed together, their scenes felt effortless. A glance could communicate more than a long conversation. A smile could change the entire mood of a moment. People around them began to notice. Yet Barış and Elçin remained focused on their work. They did not try to create a story for anyone. They simply allowed their friendship and professional partnership to develop naturally. Outside the cameras, they shared conversations about ordinary things. Favorite places, memories from childhood, future dreams, and the pressures that came with being recognized wherever they went. One evening, Elçin asked Barış a simple question. Do you ever wish people could see who we really are instead of what they imagine? Barış thought for a moment before answering. Sometimes. But maybe some things are more beautiful when they remain private. Elçin smiled. I think you're right. That conversation stayed with her. There was something comforting about knowing that not everything needed to be explained publicly. Some relationships become stronger when they are allowed to exist away from attention. As time passed, their friendship grew deeper. They became the kind of friends who could sit together without constantly talking. There was no pressure to fill every silence. They could simply share the same space and feel comfortable. One morning, before filming began, Elçin arrived earlier than usual. She found Barış already there, reading through the day's scenes. You are early, she said. So are you. I couldn't sleep. Barış closed the script. Everything okay? Elçin nodded. Yes. Just thinking about the future. Barış smiled gently. The future always looks bigger when we are standing far away from it. She looked at him. And what do you do when you don't know what comes next? Take one step, he replied. Then another. Elçin smiled. That sounds simple. It is simple. Not always easy. For a moment, neither spoke. Those ordinary conversations slowly became some of the most important parts of their friendship. They were not dramatic moments. There were no grand declarations or cinematic gestures. There were simply two people learning how to understand one another. That was perhaps what made their connection feel so real. Their fans also began noticing the chemistry between them. Whenever they appeared together, people saw a natural warmth that seemed difficult to manufacture. Interviews became especially interesting because their reactions to each other often happened before they even realized it. If Elsin laughed, Barış would often smile. If Barış made a quiet joke, Elsin would immediately understand it. Sometimes they finished each other's thoughts. The audience noticed every detail. But behind the public attention, their relationship remained grounded in something much simpler: respect. They respected each other's careers, boundaries, ambitions, and personal lives. That respect became the foundation of everything. One day, after completing another demanding scene, Barış and Elsin walked outside together. The evening air was cool, and the city lights were beginning to appear in the distance. Elsin looked toward the skyline. Do you ever think about how quickly everything changes? Barış followed her gaze. All the time. One year you're unknown to someone, and then suddenly they become part of your everyday life. Barış looked at her for a moment. Maybe the important people are the ones who stay meaningful even after the moment changes. Elsin turned toward him. That's a beautiful way to think about it. He smiled. I just think some connections are worth protecting. She nodded. Neither of them said anything more. But the silence between them felt meaningful. Years could pass, careers could change, and life could take unexpected turns. Yet some moments remained important because they reminded people of what genuine connection could look like. For Barış and Elsin, their journey was not defined by one dramatic moment. It was built through hundreds of small ones. A shared laugh. A quiet conversation. A supportive word before a difficult scene. A smile from across a crowded room. A simple understanding that required no explanation. Their story became special because it never needed to be forced. Whether people saw them as close friends, unforgettable co-stars, or something more, one thing was impossible to ignore: the connection they created on screen felt natural because there was genuine trust behind it. And perhaps that was the secret. Real stories are rarely perfect. They are built from ordinary moments that slowly become unforgettable. As the evening continued, Barış and Elsin returned to the set for one final scene. The cameras were ready. The lights came on. The director called for silence. They looked at each other. For a brief second, everything around them disappeared. Then the scene began. And once again, their chemistry filled the screen. Neither of them knew what the future would bring. But sometimes, the most beautiful stories begin exactly that way, with two people simply taking the next step together, without knowing where the journey will lead. The next chapter of their journey began quietly. There was no dramatic announcement and no moment that suddenly changed everything. Instead, the bond between Barış Arduç and Elçin Sangu continued to grow through the ordinary days they shared. The more time they spent together, the more comfortable they became around each other. On set, they could move from a serious scene to laughter within seconds. A difficult emotional moment could be followed by a simple joke that made the entire atmosphere lighter. Barış often had a calm way of handling pressure. When a scene became complicated, he would take a moment, study the script, and focus completely. Elsin noticed this. She admired the way he could remain composed even when everything around him became busy. At the same time, Barış appreciated Elsin's ability to bring energy into difficult situations. She could walk into a room and make people feel more relaxed without even trying. Their differences continued to complement each other. One afternoon, they were waiting for a scene to be prepared. The crew was adjusting the lights while the actors sat nearby. Elsin looked at Barış. Do you ever get nervous before a scene? Barış smiled. Of course. You don't look nervous. Maybe I've learned how to hide it. Elsin laughed. I don't think you hide much. Barış raised an eyebrow. Really? You have a very expressive face. He laughed. And you think yours isn't? She immediately smiled. Mine is impossible to control. They both laughed. It was a simple exchange, but moments like that became part of their everyday friendship. They understood that the best memories were often created when nobody was trying to create a memory. As their work continued, they also began talking more about life beyond acting. They discussed the importance of family, personal dreams, success, and the strange experience of having strangers form opinions about people they had never met. One evening, Elçin admitted that fame could sometimes feel overwhelming. "Sometimes I wonder if people remember that we're normal people too," she said. Barış listened carefully. "People see what is in front of the camera. They don't see everything behind it." "Exactly. And maybe that's okay," he added. "We don't have to explain every part of ourselves." Elçin looked at him thoughtfully. "You really believe that?" "I do." His answer made her smile. There was comfort in knowing that someone understood the pressure without needing a long explanation. Their friendship gradually became a safe place for honest conversations. They could disagree without turning it into an argument. They could tease each other without taking things personally. Most importantly, they could be themselves. That kind of trust is not created overnight. It grows slowly. And sometimes, people only realize how strong a connection has become when they imagine life without it. For Barış and Elçin, that realization came during a period when their schedules became especially demanding. They were both busy with professional responsibilities, interviews, rehearsals, and other commitments. Their days became longer. Their conversations became shorter. There were moments when they went several days without seeing each other. At first, neither thought much about it. They were both accustomed to busy lives. But when they finally met again, Elçin smiled the moment she saw him. "Finally." Barış smiled back. "Finally." She shook her head. "You disappeared. You were busy too." "I know." They laughed. But beneath the laughter was something they both understood. They had missed their conversations. They had missed the easy familiarity they shared. That realization made their reunion feel more meaningful. Later that evening, they found a quiet place away from the crowd. Elçin looked at him and said, "It's strange." "What?" "We can go days without talking, but when we meet again, it feels like nothing changed." Barış nodded. "Maybe that's what real friendship is." She smiled. "Maybe." Their connection did not depend on constant communication. It depended on trust. That was one of the reasons it remained strong. As months passed, people around them continued to notice their closeness. Whenever they appeared together, there was a natural ease between them. They did not need to constantly stand beside each other. They did not need to perform friendship for anyone. Their expressions and small gestures were enough. During one interview, a question about memorable professional partnerships came up. Elçin paused before answering. "There are some people you meet professionally who eventually become important in your life," she said. Barış listened quietly. She continued. "You learn from them, you trust them, and after a while, working together doesn't feel like work anymore." Barış smiled. The interviewer noticed. "So you have someone like that?" Elçin smiled back. "I think everyone has someone." Barış gave a small laugh. Neither of them added anything. But the moment stayed with the audience. It was not a confession. It was not a dramatic revelation. It was simply a reminder that meaningful relationships can exist in many forms. Behind the scenes, Barış and Elçin continued supporting one another. When one faced an important professional opportunity, the other offered encouragement. When one had a difficult day, the other knew when to speak and when simply to listen. That balance became increasingly important. One night, after a long day, Barış and Elçin found themselves talking about dreams again. "Where do you see yourself years from now?" Elçin asked. Barış thought carefully. "I hope I'm still doing work that makes me happy." That's it? That's enough. She smiled. I like that answer. What about you? Elçin looked toward the distance. I want to look back and feel that I lived honestly. That I chose the things that mattered. Barış nodded. Then don't let other people's expectations choose for you. She looked at him. Sometimes you say things that sound like advice. Maybe I'm secretly wise. She laughed. Secretly? Their laughter filled the quiet space. It was another ordinary moment. But perhaps those were the moments that mattered most. Their journey continued without a perfect script. There were busy days and quiet days. There were moments when life pulled them in different directions. Yet the connection remained. Because it had never been built on attention.